But it looks like right now that Rob Van Dam is probably going to get signed to, and I think probably to WCW.
Oh well, since it's so much different than the WWF, how they're going to be run and stuff. Yeah. So I don't know.
So I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, I think Ross and Van Dam were both on the cover of High Times before in the past. But I can't be sure of that. So that's speculatory.
Jim Ross is a renowned pot smoker.
Hey, what's in that barbecue sauce again?
That's right.
If only people knew.
But I'm actually kind of surprised.
Isn't that the title China's? Never mind.
Yeah,
it's close. I'm actually kind of surprised that WWF would sign Van Dam.
It's not the WWF, it's a WCWF.
I'm surprised that Vince McMahon, who owns both, I was surprised that Vince would give Van Dam a shot, considering the first time he was there, he came across as kind of having an attitude problem, according to reports. So it's definitely a shock.
Well, I guess it comes to the point when you're out of work.
And everybody stayed shocked.
Yeah. When you're out of work for this long and your only option is XPW. Not to rip XPW, but just because they're not paying as much money.
Wow.
Yeah.
With announcers like that, I mean, my God, they're going to overtake the WWF in 2 weeks.
I don't think he wears any pants.
Who, that Christopher Klux or whatever his name is?
I don't know what his name is. If I say it, I might get myself in trouble.
Anyway, once you're out of work all this time, you're not making any money, and he does have a wife to support.
And a habit as well.
Damn job. But
he also has a habit to support.
Yeah.
She did shatter her leg. I don't think she's able to work to this very day.
She could.
How did that story go? If we can take a little moment here and kick back and reminisce.
I believe.
Yeah, but
didn't we have the kickback music?
Didn't Sabu crash into her jet craft and her watercraft or whatever the hell it was and break her leg?
No, see, Sabu didn't have a jet ski. He was kind of just out there running.
Well, I heard after
he was walking on the water.
After she wrecked whatever the hell she wrecked into, Sabu immediately ran right into a boat.
It was a parasailing accident where it was a severe broken leg.
You think wrestlers have learned by now parasailing is not safe? I mean,
of course, now we're making fun of people's injuries.
Yeah, I'm gonna get more emails.
Quick, Tom, break your leg on the air.
You should have saw us last night when they showed Kane's elbow. This past Monday on Raw.
Anyway, getting back to Van Dam a sec, I think it's one of those things where it's a lesson learned. The WWF may end up getting a bargain out of it if they can teach him to wrestle and give him a little less attitude, and he becomes a star to some degree. They're going to make money off the deal.
I'm sorry, Tom.
Well, nothing I say is important, so you can go ahead if you want. Well, I was going to say, with Van Dam, you have a high spot artist, and it's been argued for years and years that he has no ring psychology. So, to me, it's kind of like Jurassic Park. You have the dinosaur DNA, and then you stick that frog DNA in there, and the frog DNA is the Matt psychology. But, he might turn and eat all the people.
I don't think Van Dam... I don't think arguing about Van Dam having a lack of psychology is argued.
What the hell is that all about?
It's on the back of this Jeff Jarrett figure.
Getting it off, right? So. No, just real quick. You say it's been argued that Van Dam has no psychology. I think it's been proven that Van Dam has no ring psychology. I don't think arguing is a good term.
But you take a guy like Rhino, though. I mean, I think Rhino. It wasn't the same argument with Rob Van Dam.
Stop looking at the packages.
No.
Oh boy.
It wasn't the same argument, but he was also a guy who didn't have a whole lot of seasoning or ring psychology either. But they put him in the right environment in WWF, and they put him in with the right guys, and he's looked pretty damn good so far. So, you never know. I mean, Rob Van Dam's athletic ability is unparalleled. I mean, you can't take that away from him. But maybe they can find a way to properly channel what he does have and add the elements that he doesn't have. And if they ever do it, then, he's going to be scary, but...
Yeah, he has to want to do it. Let's not forget that.
And I think putting him in WCW is also a smart move. I don't think he really fits in right now with the WWF, and since they're on this whole submission mat wrestling kick, for at least the time being anyway. Yeah. So it'll add a little bit more to WCW, I think.
I think so.
For the Chuck Palombos and the Elix Skippers that maybe need someone to work with.
One of the other guys they're talking to, Tom, get ready.
Uh-oh. Should I cover my ears? Of course, I did hear about this earlier today, so I can't act totally surprised.
They're talking to Tommy Dreamer. Jim Ross talked to him at a UPW show last weekend.
Show wasn't a Burger King? Sorry, Tom, I started a joke.
No. Apparently either Tommy Dreamer's car broke down, so he hasn't been able to hit the drive-thrus, or he just legitimately lost weight. But apparently he has lost some weight. Recommitted himself.
Or have the sweatpants gotten bigger? That's the key.
I don't think Francine's been eating, though, assuming the two are going. Can you see those two going out on a date?
No.
Don't eat that. Tommy, do you want this?
That's the problem. They go to the drive-thru, and he's like, you can eat that burger?
Unbelievable. Dreamer, though, there is something more to Dreamer, and it's obviously not his interview skills. Well, I'm not talking about the 48-30 inseam in his pants or his Old Navy jeans, but Dreamer apparently just has this, not aura, but road agent style mentality. Like, he's already a veteran of the business. Hell, he's like, what, 31, 32 years old? Apparently he was well liked in ECW. Well, John Cronus was too, and then whatever happened to him. But Dreamer, I don't know, it'd be a decent addition. You got Van Dam.
Throw him in the hardcore division. If he's healthy, he can contribute, and everyone says he's a good company man. He'll do anything. Proven.
That's the thing about Dreamer, though. I mean, we joke about his weight problem. Well, I don't even know if it's a weight problem, but we think it's a weight problem. But we joke a lot about his weight. But he's one of those guys, too, though. He'll go out and, I mean, he gives you everything he has. And that's not just like a PR statement either. I mean, he legitimately does care, and he really does try his best. So, I mean, look at the matches that he pulled out of C.W. Anderson. And, when I first saw that feud, I was like, ugh.
Shouldn't it be look at the matches C.W. Anderson pulled out of Tommy Dreamer?
It's a combination of the two, but I'm just saying, though, it could have been real easy for Dreamer to, not hold up his end of the deal. So,
I mean, it's well documented too. Dreamer does wrestle when he's hurt. Like I said, this isn't just like a kiss to Tommy Dreamer's sweatpants match or segment or anything like that. As much as we ridiculed him, I mean, we probably should pay him just a little small oodle of credit. So, there you go, Tommy.
Well, the other thing, as we're being set off the commercial, the third guy that they're talking to right now, and there's not a whole lot of news on it, so we didn't bring him up yet, is Jeff Jarrett. Apparently, he may have a role in the company, and we'll have to just wait and see. But I think Buff Bagwell and Lex Luger were legitimately fired on television. I think we've confirmed that.
Yeah. Well, we should also point out that Jeff Jarrett's going to make $6 an hour too, so that's important.
That's right.
Small dollars.
Hey, pays off. You want
Ryan, we're in black and white now.
Oh,
do what you're supposed to do.
I'm sorry. We'll see you, kids. We'll be back next. We'll talk about Backlash, Raw, and other things. Yeah. That's gotta hurt.
And anyone with plumbing experience, Raven was just hitting Rhino with a kitchen.
I'll tell you what, though, the old Hills department store carts, they were plastic with, like, I guess the metal underneath, so those things didn't fold in.
That's right.
I wanted to see a Hills cart.
The other thing, real quick before we move on, I want to say about Rhino is that maybe he's not on Chris Benoit's level when it comes to wrestling, but he's one of those guys like Benoit who, when he does something, he actually makes it look like it's real.
Yeah.
He makes it look like it hurts. So, I mean, he's just one of those guys. I think if handled correctly, he's going to be a big star. I don't see any reason why he shouldn't be.
Yeah, I agree. Well, you just talked about Chris Benoit, so let's go into his match. Benoit, Kurt Angle, 30-minute ultimate submission match.
I was bored.
I am baffled by the people on the internet. Dave Scherer from OneWrestling.com called this match a total failure. Speaking of total failures, I mean, give me a break here. Okay, the crowd may not have been on its feet screaming and yelling through the whole thing. It's a submission match. If you expected the crowd to be on for 30 straight minutes, you're fooling yourself. And I'm sure the WWF didn't expect that. But the crowd popped at the right times. They got up for the crossface, which ended the match. They popped when they needed to pop, and they popped when it was important for them to do so. And you're talking about a crowd that's not knowledgeable of things like a single leg crab and things like that. You have to expect it. That's the way the WWF markets its wrestling. And
you have to remember, too, while Chris Benoit has been marketed as a face for the last few months, he's not hit that stride yet as a face. I mean, working with Angle helps, but, you have to remember that, too. He's not the kind of wrestler that, and I think it's been used and said before, that he kind of wrestles in a bubble. He doesn't acknowledge the crowd, and that's something that Benoit has to work on. So, like you said, to expect that, and it's ridiculous, and it's just something more to, it's nitpicking, basically.
And Benoit did a better job actually acknowledging the crowd Monday on Raw, whenever he did the whole angle with Kurt Angle, whenever he took his medals. I think he is maybe starting to begin the stride as a babyface.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just one of those things where people jump to conclusions, and you have to let things play out first. That's like saying that the WCW angle has failed.
I know.
And nothing's even happened yet.
People have nothing to talk about. I mean, we struggle for topics here on the show too, but we're not jumping to conclusions.
Except off camera, then things fire up after that.
I mean, just if you're gonna come out and say something stupid, just shut down your website, please. Hate your pop-up menus anyway. But I don't know.
Feel better now.
That's really hitting below the belt with the pop-up menus.
Yeah.
Really
I don't know. What did you the other two, Jim and Tom, kind of
Jungle?
Yeah, Jungle, Jim Steele, and Tom Brandy. What did you guys think of the?
Oh, thanks.
What did you guys think of the angle?
Oh, this match was great. I just can't believe Kurt Angle. I mean, I realize he has a background in amateur wrestling, well documented. I can't believe how far he's come as a pro wrestler in such a short time. And Benoit, basically God in my eyes, so.
Eric Clapton for some.
No, I enjoyed the match too. I getting back to the website or the internet, people saying what they're saying. There's really no basis for it. I could be sarcastic and say, well, they were both damaged by tapping out, but that's just joke. No, of course I'm only
Hey,
kidding.
we're not talking Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels here. Where let's go for 4 hours and see if no one gets a pin or a submission. That stuff's that's just stupid. I mean, have these guys tap out.
But if you ask Bret to this day, it was a 62-minute Iron Man match.
He'll be bellyaching about that 5 years from now, but. There's nothing wrong with having those guys tap out. And I mean, and one of the things too, I think Jim Ross did a great job doing commentary for this match because Benoit tapped out first. It was I believe it was a leg lace that Angle had him in. He tapped out quickly, and Ross explained, it's smarter to tap out quickly as opposed to staying in it. So I thought everybody did a good job in that match.
Yeah, and just before we roll out to another commercial, just mentioning the Bret Hart-Shawn Michaels match, I think it was Dave Meltzer brought up that, it was similar to that match because that match sort of failed with the crowd. But I think that it failed with the crowd because it had no pins. There was nothing it was building to. But I don't think this match failed with the crowd. I totally disagree with anybody who thinks that this match is a failure. These two guys put on a really great match and a very big win for Chris Benoit that he needed and is really going to help and is really going to go a long way with establishing him.
Well said, I agree.
All right, well, we're going to go to another commercial. We're going to come back. We're going to look a little bit more at some of the top matches on the show.
Itself was also highly criticized on the internet, maybe not by us, but certainly worth talking about. The cowardly Austin and old school style of the match. I know. I'm sorry, Rennie, you okay?
No, because I think I read the same thing you're talking about. Someone said Steve Austin's character is dead.
Defanged, I believe.
I'm sorry. What are these people? What are they watching? Because it's not the same stuff I am. That's for sure.
Well, I guess the only person with Venom then, now that Austin doesn't, well, that's another reference we won't go into right now.
But it's just,
good.
Okay.
Somebody's got to mention his name. Come on.
I'm just boiling.
Scott Venom.
Well, that's a good name.
The hell with
You
that.
shouldn't mention
I'm not
his
even
name.
gonna.
I don't want to start insulting local workers again.
Oh,
Said that
yeah.
name,
You're notorious for that.
Yeah, well, just getting into the Austin thing a little bit and then defanging Austin,
That was clever, by the way.
I think we've all learned a lesson, at least, I think at least here on this show that, you don't judge one guy's character or career by one freaking night. And if you watched Raw the next evening, the night after Backlash, yes, Austin was backing away from The Undertaker. The Undertaker wasn't backing away from, Chris Jericho is smaller than he is, or, the Hardy Boys. It was The Undertaker. And if you watch Raw the following evening, I think that Austin more than proved that the killer heel is still intact. I mean, I don't know.
Here's the thing.
If you don't have your heels retreat, number one, that's called building your heel.
Right.
Get people to hate him. People, screaming, why don't he stand up and fight? But number two, it also builds up your faces a little bit.
Yeah. While we're talking, let's go to the clip.
You're also talking about a guy who probably has every Steve Austin shirt that was ever made, so, he's my friend.
Here's the thing. If a heel doesn't do stuff like that, back away, I know Austin doesn't do this because, basically his arm's been chopped off because he's been defanged.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is, you sometimes see heels going like this on their knees trying to shake the guy's hand. Unless you're a cool heel like this jack-off, who all he cares about is ganja and hemp.
Is such a loved character for a long time that people aren't just going to all of a sudden turn away from him because there's no super strong babyface for him to go up against with Rock being away. Sorry, Tom. But the thing is, over the last couple weeks and even this past Monday on Raw, they're building Triple H and Austin as being unstoppable heels. And if you listen to Jim Ross's commentary, this is where I think you get the hint. He kept saying, who is going to stop these guys? What, is this going to go on forever? Who can possibly step up to the plate? That, folks, is what they're building to. It's not a political power trip. They're building two smart, strong heels so that when somebody like Rock or whoever it is comes back and opposes these guys, the freaking building's going to fall down because of the pop. That's what they're building.
It's interesting you mentioned Jim Ross and actually hearing what he's saying because a lot of people don't do that.
Right.
They judge by what they see and not hear.
Exactly.
Jim Ross adds a lot to the WWF telecasts. I mean, you've seen that from his past, the past couple of years whenever he's missed with Bell's palsy, Michael Cole's filled in, and you just don't have that same intensity level. So it's important to listen to Jim Ross. He sells the storylines unlike other announcers. So that's one of the more important things you can do when you watch something like this.
Exactly.
I was going to say, factor in the fact that fans are fickle as hell. I'm sure when Austin comes out, people cheer him. If he does stuff like, say, get on the knees, try to shake the hand, just sly and I can't think of the word because I don't have my thesaurus with me. But the thing is, you could very well turn Austin face again in the fans' eyes and have them boo Kane or an Undertaker just by his actions if he's a cool heel like KN over here.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, Ryan, just on that little diatribe you just went on, which I agree with, you almost mentioned the words glass ceiling. And,
I'm kill next person who does.
But I do want to bring up that point. we talked during the show that, well, you know, it's just these 4 guys. Well, you know what, here's 2 points. These guys are making money, all 4 of them. And number 2, and you brought up this point, I don't mean to take credit for it, but Kane and The Undertaker are the only 2 faces that can stand up against these guys.
For now.
And for now, exactly.
And the 2 guys logically positioned.
And quite frankly, I think Kane's being elevated through this. He hasn't really gotten the upper echelon push that maybe he has or has not deserved, but now he's there.
Well, let's not forget too, Jim. As part of that, you know, Triple H also has Vince McMahon in his back pocket, according to everybody else too, and he goes around and manipulates people like, well, our centerpiece here. But
yeah, screw that hard work and the best deal in the business thing he has.
Yeah, you know, he's worthless now. You know, so that goes back again to what Tom said about fans being fickle, or even wrestling journalists being fickle.
Hey, blow your knees out, have 2 basically moves in your repertoire, and you're cool.
Well, the one other match we'll just touch on briefly is the Duchess of Queensberry match, and I know there's been a lot of criticism of this one too.
No.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it worked, and I mean there was a match like I think it was a year ago, it was Lance Storm and Mike Awesome, where they did similar rules, where the heel kept changing the rules in order to win the match. But I think they did this much better because they made Lance Storm look like an idiot in that position. But in this match, it was sort of designed. Regal's not supposed to be the serious heel that Lance Storm is. He's supposed to be more of a comedic heel. So these rules, I think, worked in Regal's favor, and I think put the heat on Jericho. And I think that became obvious after the match and this past Monday on Raw whenever he took him out with a trash can. I think it worked. I enjoyed it. I know a lot of people did.
Yeah, well, you know what? You can draw back to the Lance Storm and Mike Austin thing, or you can also draw back to Steve Austin and Dude Love when Pat Patterson kept changing the rules. So there's a fine line in between. I think that's where that match sits right now. Yeah.
But I can understand people who didn't like it. I mean, you know.
It could have been seen as convoluted at times, definitely.
So. But I guess we're going to come back. We didn't even touch on Raw really a whole lot, so we'll go to what we saw this past week on Raw. God, we'll be back.
Say so eloquently, many, many, many times. Let's kick it.
You sound like the guy from Police Academy, by the way.
Who? Commandant Lassard.
Yeah.
Lassard.
We'll talk about it later. Question number 1: who did Jeff Jarrett beat to win his first Intercontinental title? Was Razor Ramon. Bonus points for anyone who knew it was in January '95. The 2 pay-per-views that have Iron Man matches, 60-minute Iron Man matches that is, in the WWF, WrestleMania 12 and Judgment Day from 2000. Who were the last 4 men left in the 1998 Royal Rumble? Steve Austin, Farouk, Dude Love, and The Rock. And the question from last week's show, how many times has The Undertaker held the tag team titles? 5 times. The winner this week was Chris Erickson from Pittsburgh, PA. And he had his address.
Yes, thank you.
Thank God.
And Chris, you win from Original Pizza Works. You win 1 large pie. You win an order of chicken wings, and you win a 2-liter bottle of carbonated beverage. And I will say that for our Backlash party this week, we did enjoy some pizza from Original Pizza Works, and I might give my personal thumbs up. So it was good stuff. And
I too give it my thumbs up because I did have a few slices.
That's right.
Okay, this week's question. After you answer the 3 on the website, you got to answer this one.
Get a pen and pencil for this one, kids.
Name 2 WWF wrestlers who have had figures in the LJN, Hasbro, and Jakks series. Once again, it's name 2 WWF wrestlers who have had figures in the LJN, Hasbro, Jakks series. We'll give you a hint. LJN's from the 80s, Hasbro's from the 90s, Jakks is current. Answer that one, answer those 3 on the website, and remember your name and address.
Well, Jim, he can redeem those coupons at any of the Pizza Works outlets in Dravosburg, Jefferson Hills, or Findlayville. So answer the action figure questions. After all, we are the Toy Kings, and you will get your pizza. We'll see you next segment. Thank you.
It's ESPN. This is the Pro Wrestling Review, and we don't know what we're going to talk about, so we'll see you next segment once again. Anyway, we'd like to jump a little bit, well, what it's written.
I almost believed you there.
Yeah.
What is written shall be said. Anyway, we'd like to talk a little bit about Raw this past Monday. I really don't remember much about it, and I can't understand why. Too many things going on in the personal life.
I think Austin was a cowardly heel again at some point.
I did see that. Nah, never mind.
You know what? We seem a little sluggish, so I think I've figured out a way to really get us going here. Hey, how about that China Lita angle?
Actually, talking
I'm
about
sorry, my TV shut off mysteriously when that came on.
Gosh, how did that happen? You know,
Hit the power button. No, did I say that out loud?
On accident, right?
Yeah, that was supposed to be said internally.
Right. I want to bring up a point. I brought this up on my on the webpage on ProWrestlingReview.com. You know, you had China and Lita, for the most part, either wrestling men or being involved with men. Now you have China.
Hey now.
Touche. But now you have China decimating the women's division. Now, isn't that as a whole decimating everything?
What women's division?
Well, yeah, I mean, you're decimating it more, though, if it was possible.
Here's what I love. Trish, and we talked about this last week, at WrestleMania, she was, the biggest face the company had, and now she got jobbed out in 30 seconds to China.
She's pushing the diva tape,
Yeah,
though. They have to pull her back.
Yeah.
It was the first time in my life I was screaming for Trish to get back in the ring and save the whole segment.
You know what? This is the big. You know what? This is my biggest problem.
Collect
with the
your
whole
thoughts,
thing.
sir.
This is my biggest problem with the whole thing. And the problem is it started off this whole angle. It's like the first move of the match is Trish Stratus like bolts towards China, runs into her, and China, like the iron statue that she is, stands there, and Trish just bounces off. It's like, China, that would have been logical 70 pounds ago. But considering you and Trish Stratus probably both weigh the same freaking amount, If you want that to work, go eat a box of Pop-Tarts.
The one.
Still make
On a
those?
serious note, though, I think China has lost her appeal because she doesn't have that body. Well, she doesn't have that body mass anymore. Now she's real thin and her head's real big, and it's weird.
This doesn't sound kind of rude.
Smiling? What's with the smile?
That's surgically implanted.
She's happy now, bruh. She's fulfilling her dream.
Because these promos.
She's
it's
pretty
like,
now, damn
I
it.
have to retire a broken neck.
Yeah, what happened to that? I guess that was just mysteriously forgotten.
No.
I think the
Once
problem
again-
with China is, this is going to sound really weird when I say this, but she's taken on a much softer look. I think that as also with the weight loss, she's lost a lot of her muscle
You figure
mass.
she doesn't wear the leather anymore. She doesn't wear the cut leather, whatever the hell it was, the chains.
Well, here's my problem with the whole thing. To quote Brian, if I may, here's my biggest problem with the whole segment. China and Lita suck.
Yeah.
There's that. Everyone in the WWF is overlooking this. They suck.
I've been saying for months now that not China, but Lita's going to kill herself one day doing the moonsault. Well, she almost accomplished that on Heat. She fought Molly Holly.
Who?
Yeah.
The talented one.
Just jobbing her pants off to everybody.
Oh man! Savio Vega in the room.
Yeah.
Pro
Everybody in the
WrestlingReview.com.
company. Lita, hits this moonsault, lands right on her face. She's got to start watching Kurt Angle tapes. I'm being serious about this. Kurt Angle
You mean the one that's on pay-per-view right now?
Yeah. Kurt Angle's got a similar moonsault as Lita has because they both get more height than they get distance. But when Kurt Angle does his moonsault, he pulls his opponents closer to the turnbuckles so that whenever he does do the moonsault, he gets the nice height. The moonsault looks good. And I think if Lita does the same thing, I think if she pulls her opponents closer to the turnbuckles, A, she'll hit the move, and B, she'll just break someone's ribs instead of breaking her own neck whenever she lands.
Well, won't that be at the cost of her other brilliant and wonderful moves if she does that?
The Rhino.
Here's what we got to do. Leading up to the pay-per-view, we got to start a contest. Name the blown spots leading up to the pay-per-view. My prediction, I think, is around 23 for a 10-minute match. That's double that as time
How
goes
many will
on.
Lita do? Because that's got to just be China's corner. Right?
Well, I think I was combining it actually. I was being a little generous.
I don't even know why I bring this up, but if you buy the new Diva magazine, which I'm sure all four of us have, by the way, the first page, there's a big picture of China and Lita like hugging or embracing or giving each other mouth to mouth. I'm not really sure what
They
they're doing.
almost did during their promo.
I thought they were just trying
Speaking
to
of
plan a
which,
slumber party.
The promo didn't mean anything. I didn't understand what Lita was trying to say. China, I believe, was speaking into a muffler. I'm sorry, the speech was muffled, not a muffler. But if you open up the new Divas magazine, I don't know, I believe China said this. Oh, Lita and I are very good friends along with Deborah, the 25-year-old that looks like she's 80. But the thing is, I realize pro wrestling has no logic. Austin hates me anyway, he watches the show, you know that. Wrestling has no logic to it whatsoever. Just open up the Diva magazine, there you go. I realize that can't even ruin this feud, the match will, but just take that for what it's worth.
Yeah, but also
Go home.
But also, they also made it a point that they like each other during their interview on Raw. So that
I didn't understand what the hell China was trying to get at, though.
Who cares,
I don't
man?
know.
It's 10
Well, who the
minutes of
hell
our
cares about the
lives.
women's division then? I mean, they're out there for one
During the
purpose.
pay-per-view, we'll order pizza, sit back, or read a book.
I'm sorry, Tom.
Oh, you better be. I can say beyond a shadow of a doubt that the women are out there, and I hate to say this and I love to say this, they're out there for one reason and one reason only, and we all know what the reason is.
Titillation?
Oh, the women's title. I meant.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brian.
Well, that was the Raw segment.
In a nutshell, from around the world. Wrap it up.
Yeah, okay. Wrap it. Wrap.
Hey, we'll be back right after these messages. So we turn to you, our viewers and viewer mail. We have music or anything?
Dun, dun, dun.
Lemmy's over in the other room. You want me to go summon him?
Yeah.
Maybe you should.
Fell asleep on the weeder, Jim.
Hell, let's get started. I missed that one. Well, this one's from Patrick. He writes a long letter, but I'm just going to cut out a lot of it. I think you guys should talk.
Everything with the last sentence.
By the way, it's ProWrestlingReview@likeus.com. Write to us there.
One sentence.
I think you guys should talk more about local independent federations. Well, I did last week. We talk about it from time to time. We're working on getting some interviews together. Like I said, I did it in my rant last week. I have plugged it in the past, and apparently my rant wasn't good enough last week, because here's a letter I got from Jerome, who writes.
Jerome Pathon from the NFL.
Is that who it was?
Yes.
Oh, he can kick my ass. It should probably be nice.
Jerome Walton from the Cubs.
I watched your show the other night, and although I didn't see the match you mentioned, how in the world can you complain about a match between Super Hentai and Brandon Kay? Well, go back and watch last week. I wasn't criticizing those guys. I was complimenting them. I believe this is something effective when you work in X transition moves into high spots. It makes the match a lot better. And then, like, Hentai at one point did a Superfly Splash. Yeah, it's a simple move, but when you do all the other stuff that goes along with it, it makes it look better. I think the point I was trying to make was I was trying to criticize the other guys, the younger guys, excuse me, who get in a ring, do all their moves in a 3-minute span, and it just looks bad. And another point, I don't mean to take up too much time, but
That's all right.
Jerome writes,
enjoying
well, I didn't see the match. How in the world could you criticize? Well, if you didn't see the match, how are you to criticize me to where if I thought it was good or bad to begin with? I mean, I wrote about this on the website. I wrote to this gentleman back, and we had an intellectual
You've done
debate.
your part, Jim. You know,
Yeah, I tried.
you can only do so much.
But we had actually an intellectual debate, and his letter is welcome again. So, you move on to Rennie.
Yes, thank you very much. This is from Chris. He asked us a question about WCW. Basically, it's who are the guys that they're keeping? Who aren't they going to keep? What about Goldberg and Sting? And what do you think? Do you think Shane McMahon will ruin WCW? I don't think Shane McMahon is going to ruin WCW. I don't think the WWF is going to ruin WCW. I think the reason they've been delayed is because they want to do things right this time. As far as Goldberg and Sting, they're basically better off staying under the Time Warner banner. They're collecting their money, and if they take a buyout, they're actually going to make less money if they sign a WWF-type contract. So it's in their best interest, I guess, to stay with Time Warner. And as far as those two gentlemen are concerned, I don't think their hearts are in wrestling anyway, so I wouldn't want them in the new WCW. The second letter is from Jason Burke. He basically compliments the show and says things about, Jeff Hardy, Christian, X Factor, how their music sucks, and we've talked a lot about that. So, Brian, go ahead, and Jason, you should have quit while you were ahead.
Let me just add to the Goldberg thing. A report that I saw stated that he's going to make over the next 2 years $6 to $7 million to sit at home. Oh, I'd sit at home. I mean,
that's the idea too, and truthfully, I don't want to see Goldberg back in wrestling. He has no heart for it.
We got another letter from Jason Burke. This is sort of the other end of the spectrum. Hi guys, it's Jason again. Hello. I'm making my
Welcome
summer
back.
pool wrestling league, and I was wondering if you guys can help. You guys are good heads for wrestling like me, and maybe you can pop my league. He said, well, I won't mention the name. He says he's working with to get a WBGN TV deal. I'll let you know about details. Wrestlers Times Productions. I need your help. Look, Jason, we appreciate you writing to us, and you've written to us a lot in the past. Just no. We've said on the show before, we do not endorse, and I know this is different, sort of. We don't endorse backyard wrestling at all. It's stupid. Somebody's going to get killed, And this is something that makes the wrestlers look bad. When tapes of things like this show up on 2020 and CNN and things like that, trust me, they're not trying to, those reporters there aren't looking to take all angles of the story. They're there to make sure they hammer the point home of see what wrestling's doing, see what it's doing, and it makes the workers look bad whenever somebody does get hurt. They immediately get the finger pointed at him saying, see, wrestling is contributing to more downfall in society. Seriously, Jason, you've written us some very intelligent emails. I'd make a smart decision here, and I wouldn't go about doing this. I don't think there's any market for it on television, and I just think it's a bad idea.
Well, this one's from Dennis C. from Pittsburgh. I think that your show is really good, obviously. I also go to the website often. And the
He's a
wrestling
humble
world,
man, ladies and gentlemen.
would you shut up? In the wrestling world, it
also
seems that there
angry.
really isn't much to talk about because Rennie is, since Vince McMahon has basically bought wrestling, obviously you see us struggling for segments here from time to time, most of the time anyway. And the P.S., when is Ahmed Johnson having his baby? Well, I don't know. I don't know if the baby has to be gang initiated when it's born or not, so we really don't know. And this one is from Chase from I don't know where. I need to get some things off my chest. Let's see. Internet websites with smarts, so to speak, I guess he really doesn't like because, well, guys like Bob Ryder who basically need to be put in. Well, I almost said something I was going to regret. Bob Ryder's no good. Chris Benoit, couple more excerpts from the letter. Chris Benoit needs a push now. I will blow up my computer and go live in a cave. Don't do anything drastic, like Brian said about the backyard stuff. It's just not worth it. Steve Blackman sucks. I agree wholeheartedly with that. It needs to be fired. Well, maybe firing squad is a little more accurate. I hope you're having fun over there, Rennie, while I'm trying to read this. The new WCW will suck. There you go. Well, let's wait and see on that one. And XPW sucks. Well, they are the new ECW.
Yeah, XPW fans sent your letters to Chase.
Well, once again, we always welcome and encourage and thank you for the viewer mail. Keep it clean. Keep it simple.
And where can they send that mail, Tom?
What's that?
Where can they send that mail?
I do not know. No, not W. I'm sorry. ProWrestlingReview.com. Somewhere on there's feedback. So. Click on it, send us some email, keep it clean, keep it intelligent, keep it simple, and keep it coming. What? See, I got the earpiece. That's why I'm doing so well tonight.
We got to wrap this segment up. We'll be back next segment with always wonderful and popular rants. I got into this wrestling journal business 5 years ago with the Court newsletter, and doing the show. Pretty close to 2 years now, I believe. There's one phrase I've heard over and over again, and the phrase is something to the effect of, what gives you the right to criticize any workers in the area? You've never been in the ring, you don't know what it's like. I've heard it a lot over the years. I've heard it from wrestlers who are mad at me and probably wanted to beat me up. I've heard it from other people, like fans, just people I've talked to. Well, I want to make a couple points. The first point is, I have been trained as a wrestler. A few years ago, but I've been trained as a wrestler and I have been trained as a referee. I know what it's like to get in there and do these things. I didn't do it very well, which is why I'm sitting here, but that's another point altogether. The other point is, guys like Stan Savran and Ellis Cannon, they've never played professional football, yet they know more about the Steelers than probably anyone in the city. Mark Madden, I'm willing to bet, has never laced up a pair of skates and played in the National Hockey League. Sorry, Rainey. But I'm also willing to bet he knows more about hockey than anyone in the city. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not even putting myself on that level as far as wrestling goes. But the point is this, if you're a worker out there, like myself, on the show, you put yourself in a position to be either complimented or criticized. And I could sit here and say to people that criticize us, well, you don't do a TV show, you don't know what that's like. I don't say it because I know I'm in a position to criticize here, and that's fine. So the point is this, workers, if I'm criticizing you, take it with a grain of salt. And if any of you fans out there want to criticize the show, that's fine, you have a right to do it, but please leave that phrase out of it. It doesn't hold any water with me.
You're a public figure now, sir. You're going to take it.
I can't beat people up either.
Be ready. It's coming. Well, this past week on Sunday Night Heat before the pay-per-view, Jerry Lynn made his much-anticipated WWF debut. And it was actually pretty impressive, actually. He came out to the crowd in Chicago at the pay-per-view. He got a huge ovation, which was kind of out of nowhere. I guess earlier in the night he challenged Crash Holly for his light heavyweight title. Question marks around that belt. And he basically, and this is amazing because the WWF doesn't do this with their incoming talent, he actually got to cut a promo, which was pretty good considering Jerry Lynn has not been known for his quality mic skills. But the match was decent, it was very good, and it was something really to build on since Lynn had mentioned in his promo about how to start the light heavyweight division back up again. So this past Monday on Raw, the WWF didn't have anything on it at all about the light heavyweight division, which was kind of disappointing in a sense because I think Jerry Lynn and Crash Holly's match could have been a nice lead into it. So again, SmackDown hasn't aired yet, so we don't know exactly what is going to take place there. But let's hope that the WWF looks at Jerry Lynn and looks at the kind of ovation that he got, and maybe gives the light heavyweight division another chance. I mean, with Jerry Lynn, Crash Holly, maybe bring some guys from the WCW. You have Dean Malenka, who is probably the best cruiserweight in wrestling right now, and he's not really doing anything if you count, picking out hats for Perry Saturn. But give the light heavyweight division another look. I mean, if you can do this much with the hardcore division in Rhino, you wouldn't have to work as hard with the light heavyweight division.
We've seen in the past different news stories where they try to take pro wrestling and apply it to situations and see what the effect are. We saw that in the Lionel Tate case in Florida and things like that. Well, this past week, I believe it was Wake Forest University, a study came out indicating that those who watch wrestling have more of a tendency to participate in date violence. And I can't remember exactly what the statistics were, if they were like 50 or 51% of the people they talked to who watched wrestling that week had more of a tendency to participate in date violence. And they went to the WWF, and the WWF actually probably had the best comment I've seen so far, and they said, well, you know, the study's not all that thorough because they didn't take into account things like the person's life at home, you know, other characteristics in their life, which is true. You know, I don't get it. You know, what the hell the point of these studies are. This is probably the most brainless study I can think of, this Wake Forest study. Why didn't they look at things like professional football? You know, professional football is a very violent sport. Why didn't they look at, you know, men who watch professional football, they have a tendency to go toward date violence? Or how about violent movies? You know, I'm sure there's been more than one date where a guy and a girl have gone to see a movie and it was like a Rambo movie. Is there a tendency for violence after a movie like that? You know, professional wrestling doesn't always have to be the target of these things. You know, that's fine if you want to tie that into it. But let's not try to make it such a witch hunt here. Let's try to find other things like professional football, like violent movies, like the National Hockey League, and see if there's a tendency for those things to carry over. You know, I guess these studies are going to continue until the pro wrestling business is buried forever. But, you know, I'm sorry, I just don't see the point of these studies, and I don't know. I don't know what it's all about. Tom?
Date violence?
Yeah.
Okay.
Violence toward the fruits, those little dates that come in cereal sometimes.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
The little monkey was eating an Indiana Jones in The Last Crusade, I believe. Well, I've ranted and raved for as long as this show's been on. And for some strange reason this week, I can't come up with anything to rant about, but I will tell you on Tom Combetti, the website, well, ProWrestlingReview.com, I ripped a little bit into Steve Blackman and his lethal promo, as I called it, from Backlash, where he was at WWF New York and forgot to talk into the mic when Jim Ross asked him a question, spilled fries on his lap, ketchup on his knee. This just proves my theory that Steve Blackman has absolutely no place in society. I mean, in wrestling. When guys like Steve Blackman have TV time, that takes valuable TV time, especially on Raw, away from guys like a Jerry Lynn, a commentator like Taz, a guy like, well, anybody for that matter. Well, Scotty Taylor, I don't know why I've even brought up him, but I want to bring up his tag team partner, the Cool, and trying to be black, Grandmaster Sexy, and I really don't understand what he's trying to do with this gimmick. He's a decent wrestler, actually somewhere from decent to good. I can't decide which, I'm very torn over that. But why the WWF is having him do this stupid little tongue-in-cheek gimmick? I mean, it started off with like a rip-on. I believe Public Enemy is the Too Cool gimmick started. It has evolved into the biggest monster I've ever seen, and a monster that's out of control and hopefully dies very soon and bleeds green blood. That's more along the Wake Forest study. I'm very aggressive and angry person, so I really don't have that much to say besides go to the website, read what I wrote about Steve Blackman, and try to kill him yourself. Not really. Thanks.
Well, that's pretty good.
Any death threats in your column this week?
Well, just the one at the end. No, if you want to read my column, you can pick it up on the newsstands tomorrow, or you can read it on the web. It's www.triblive.com/sports. You can also tune in to 1370 AM. It's a Wheeling ESPN affiliate. Mondays at 5 o'clock. A 20-minute radio segment about professional wrestling, kind of a lead into Monday Night Raw. So check it out, sir.
This week, my column is called Sharpshooter. You can read it in the Daily News. Pick it up on newsstands everywhere right now, or check it out on the internet at www.dailynewsthekeysport.com. And I'm going to have a look at the Big Show. Rennie and I participated in yet another national conference call with the Big Show. He had some interesting things to say about himself, and it was kind of self-deprecating. It was pretty interesting, so check that out.
And once you're done with Tom's page on the website at ProWrestlingReview.com, click on Trivia, answer those three questions, and answer this one. Name 2 WWF wrestlers who have had figures in the LJN, Hasbro, and Jakks series. You got to answer all 4, include your name and address, and send in your entry.
I'm going to say Larry Zbyszko.
He's close.
Oh.
He's close.
It's not even close.
Why don't you shut up?
Oh, I see how it is now. You're reading a question off. You don't even need the paper, and now you're all, well, never mind. Oh, God. That's it. I'm going for the Kevin Nash figure now. Anyway, once again, the website, like Jim said, www.prowrestlingreview.com. Send us some mail somewhere on there. You'll find the place for mail, maybe some ideas for segments, because basically we're done as far as the rest of the year goes for taping. So those ideas are very much appreciated. So it's true. It's true. So for myself, for Brian, for Rennie, and for the throwing of Notepad Jim, this is a Pro Wrestling Review. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.